So today we're gonna just bombard you with a lot of soft stuff. So including my talk, obviously. Today's topic is critical thinking and how to make things work, and how to make software and software driven by critical thinking. So maybe a little bit of the story here, because my problem with critical thinking was kind of taking it personally. Yep, I'm gonna switch to my drawings now. All right, boom. Okay, so I always took critical thinking as criticizing. And I was thinking like, okay, if I say something, that will be taken as a criticizing. But in fact, I needed to do some research to kind of figure out that critical thinking is not criticizing. But let's start from the very beginning. And the very beginning is cooperation, because, cooperation is quite important, especially in the teams. But, imagine this is me or you or any developer. And we do cooperate on many levels on a daily basis. And it all kind of depends on seniority. When you're a junior like me, I code like most of my days, but seniors, they do focus on cooperation with other people, on like defining the projects, tasks, etc. So this proportion is kind of like different. So how to cooperate on any single level, like very smoothly, by critical thinking, and how to process this. So yeah. So let's focus on what levels we do cooperate. So we do cooperate with code, our lovely agile coach, yeah. Our team, we pair with our colleagues, with whole department. We cooperate with sometimes QAs. We don't have QAs, but in theory, we do need QAs, yeah. Stakeholders, designers, PMs, sometimes clients, yeah. I think what we need to kind of reach out to the core of what it means to cooperate. What is kind of like conscious cooperation. So I need to tell myself, I intend to do what? First question, what? How, when, and why? And all those questions, without like having answers to all those questions, you are not able to cooperate with others, with yourself on any level. And we do need to get those answers like quite often. So here, so this is like a little cute fluff of communication. Communication is the key here. If we don't communicate with all those amazing people that are trying to get the most from the whole process, it's like pointless of do anything. So yeah, focusing on this, what, how, when, and why, getting all the answers is leading us to the core of critical thinking. Oh, so yeah, critical thinking, Fluff is always curious. He's always, on the spot. So let's say we're making an assumption. And the assumption is, for example, Golang, yeah, is the best language for programmers like these days. And apparently, probably it is. We don't know that actually, but this is the opinion. Yeah, it's someone's opinion. But we need to make the decision. Okay, from now on, obviously we made that decision, but obviously let's kind of analyze that process. Yeah, we made a decision that, okay, from now on, we are using Golang as our language, programming language to create new microservices. So that's the decision that we needed to make, or maybe not. So obviously we can't make those decisions based on opinions. I can't, let's say, go and ask Yanis, what do you think? Like, Go is good? Do you like Go? And obviously we'll say yes. So okay, therefore, let's do hype-driven decisions. No, we need facts. And what happened? We gathered like a lot of facts that are very, very important. And we need to kind of learn from to get rid of the opinions, forget about them, and just focus on facts. This is like our data that we need to process and analyze to come up with some ideas. Yeah. So let's focus on, and the most important fact, judgments based on the facts, not opinions. That's what we need to focus to make the critical thinking work. Yeah. And then we come up with ideas, with many ideas, sometimes with one idea, with like, we have an ideas. Ideas are super important. Critical thinking, it's part of this process. And those ideas, they need to have some reasoning behind them. And how to get the reasons behind our ideas? Obviously, we need to define needs. Yeah. We go to our stakeholders, we go to our colleagues, and we communicate. So, again, this cute little fluff of communication. So if we define those needs in a very structured way, what has to be done, what can't be done, we can focus now on thinking about the consequences of each idea. What would be the consequence for the future? So obviously our consequence was like, okay, from now on, we build everything in Go. And it's a cool consequence, but we need to figure out what else can be done, for example, how it's going to affect our code base, our workflow. So we need to learn how to ask questions. Again, communication. So then once we have all this data, the needs, thinking about the consequences, we can evaluate this, can evaluate all those options, sometimes remove some of the ideas, and then make the decision. So obviously making the decision is just part of problem solving. But again, making decision is some kind of process that is like a result of critical thinking. And it can be done on an individual level. It can be done on a team level. I think, in checkout, we do have like that sort of process, and probably unconsciously, but we do come up with the ideas, we brainstorm, we evaluate, and we think about the consequences for the future. And so again, documentation. We need to, if we make a decision, architecture like itself, like the software architecture, is a bunch of decisions. Yeah, our code is a bunch of decisions. So our code is technically the documentation of our decision, like planning process. Yeah. So again, problem solving is one thing, but communication, we need to be able to communicate how we made that decision. And for example, documentation is part of like communication process. We can create an ADR there. So I'm keep on going back to communication. So let's go to the core of communication, because this is the key. Even code is, let's say, a way of communicating things. Yeah. So what is the communication? And this is like the cherry on the top for this talk, because I kind of wanted to sneak the communication part into this talk, because we need to communicate. The goal of communication is to understand each other. Yeah. But what does it mean to understand each other? Let's think about this. So there are 5 types of communicating. Verbal, like I'm speaking to you now, obviously. Non-verbal, and like I'm like waving my hand, probably this is like part of non-verbal communication as well. But sometimes you can have some emotions behind your words, and this is non-verbal communication. Written communication, and ADR document is a great example of written documentation, of written communication. We communicate in that way on Slack all the time. So this is, in remote world, it is the most important way of communicating, probably. Documentation is communicating. My favorite one, which is visual, obviously, we can kind of write like long essays about like architecture but one picture, one visual way of communicating, how do we structure things, is way more readable. And fifth one is active listening. And that one is, I think, extremely important, especially in a remote, let's say, environment. Because if we don't communicate by active listening and do something in between, there is no attention. There is no ability to be focused on the message fully. So if communication, the main purpose is to understand each other, yeah, without active listening, we won't be able to understand each other. It's always be like half of the truth, half of the situation. So each of us, like me, you, everyone, we have our favorite ways of communicating. It depends if you're extrovert, introvert. All the situations like I'm facing now is more because I'm an extrovert and I communicate a lot. And my favorite way of communicating is a visual one. But sometimes, let's say this fluff, yeah, this person has non-verbal communication and verbal communication as a main way of streaming to others, yeah. So, but the other person likes only the written one. Is, for example, introvert, yeah. So we need to be able to build up the understanding from between those two people. And yeah, so we need to learn how to communicate efficiently. Yeah. And now I'm going to talk about the barriers, because there's like a lot of situations that projects are going well, but if there's lack of communication, it's going to drain. So let's figure out why we don't communicate properly. For example, first thing is just too much. Sometimes people just like bombard us with too much information, too many things, and yeah, it creates a lot of confusion. Make sure that you are communicating, not maybe over communicating things. Focus on concrete facts. Next thing, wrong attitude. So if someone like is having the wrong attitude, there will never be like understanding from the other side, and other way around. If someone is like, okay, I don't really want to listen to this, I don't really care about this, this is another barrier of understanding. Next thing, so dissatisfaction. If I would just say all those things without any kind of like passion, or just, I would just disengage you. If someone is disengaged, that there is no interest in communication, in let's say getting all the message from the other person, because the other person is not really interested in the message. So yeah, if we communicate something, let's see the purpose of it. Let's give a meaningful communication messages. There is no way, if we communicate properly, if we are in the state of conflict. If conflicts are good, by the way, I think conflicts are very productive, but if we try to communicate between two people that are conflicted, it will never work. Next thing, something may be controversial to talk about, but the language and culture barrier. We can't, like, let's say, pretend that there is nothing like this. We all communicate in English. I use my Polish English, obviously. The way I structure my sentences and everything, the way I probably accent things can be kind of taken as rude, for example, because that's what we say. We don't say like, could you please do this? And we just do this. So yeah, we need to bear in mind that sometimes, it's okay. Christoph, do you want to add something? You raised your hand.
No, sorry, I misclicked.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So yeah, so bear in mind that, okay, we kind of face those situations. We're spread all over the world. We're all different, but we need to make sure that, we take this as very important thing. So maybe the intention of that person is not being rude, just it's the way, we communicate in our native language. The same situation with the culture. Okay, So if someone is saying like half of the truth, so if there's no trust of because there's like a lack of transparency, for example. So yeah, there is no way to be able to understand that person if that person is saying just half of the truth. Yeah, so this is another thing. Next thing, lack of attention. So and I'm guilty of doing this as well. Sometimes I do have like a ticket that is so close to be finished, and I have refinement session, for example, and then I kind of like, I really want to finish it. It's just like that close, and I try to stop doing what I'm doing because I'm doing it. I need to confess, I still code doing like the meetings, and I need to just stop doing this. Yes, Lauren, you don't hear that, but yeah. This is like what sometimes it is happening, and yeah, I'm trying to avoid this and have that mindset like, this is the meeting. Stop, like, do not disturb. Just forget about your beautiful ticket. Just do what you need to do and listen now. You are here now. You won't be able to understand the tickets if you don't listen. If you focus on something else, it's half of the focus there. It's not full focus. Okay. And the emotional barrier. This is something that we don't kind of consider that much. Sometimes, because I always say about well-being and stuff like that, sometimes something happened in the morning, and your emotion there, and there is no way to figure it out over Zoom. It's sometimes even difficult to figure out when you're face to face to someone. It's good to communicate, like, you know what, today I am upset, I'm just doing something else, and like my mind is just completely not there. And having that information is a great thing, and killing this barrier, because okay, we can postpone a meeting, we can do something else, we can talk about something else, and then find a right moment to have that communication, to build up that understanding and focus, have that full focus there. So my message to you all today: talk to each other, understand each other, care for your emotions, care for your languages, care for your culture. And yeah, so critical thinking is not criticizing if it's communicated properly. All right. Okay, that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Beata. That was amazing.